Welcome to the Stephanie Gaitley Show. I'm Jack McLoone, joined as always by the wonderful Stephanie Gaitley, head coach of the Fordham Women's basketball team, here to talk about the last week of games for you guys. It's been a tough stretch. Lost another two on Saturday at St. Louis, 82-58, and then lost yesterday against George Washington, 63-46, also on the road. That extends the losing streak to 4.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for reminding me. Thank you.
It's my job. I had to. I can only talk about the games that happened.
That's true.
So, talking about that, what is the mentality of just trying to stop a long losing streak like this?
It's just trying to put it in perspective. I've done it a long time. I've been in worse streaks, and, you have to take the whole picture into account. I mean, I feel like we got a lot of false sense of confidence early just because we were playing some games. Obviously, we won on the road, but recently it's been the top teams we're playing, and they've been in, and I'm not one to be excuses because I think that's not the way we work here, but they've been tough environments. I mean, 6,000 people at St. Louis and the kids' day at GW, and right now I just feel like our defense is really lacking, and that's what's been really disappointing to me is that we usually hang our hat on defense, and for the first time ever in my career, I told the kids, I don't want you to put your Fordham gear on. You haven't earned it. And it's not a Mike Krzyzewski thing, even though it's similar to it, and I've never done that in my career, but it really bothered me because, the way we played against GW is not who we are, and it was almost like a bunch of individuals and not a collective team, and I feel we've worked way too hard to change the to change the whole environment of Fordham women's basketball and to change the perception of Fordham women's basketball to allow us to take a step back. So it starts with me. I take responsibility, because I feel it starts with me. I'm never going to go in a locker room and say, "Hey, Jack, you did this," or "Gee, you did this," or "Danielle, you did this." It starts with me. I have to look at myself first and say, what do I need to change? And we'll definitely make some changes from the last couple games to see if it can help us correct and get back on the winning track.
So before we go into more specifics, was this a stretch that you knew was going to be this difficult coming into it? Like looking at these teams, the last 4 games they're consistently some of the top 4 teams in the conference. Is that something you kind of were, I guess, looking at, that this was going to be a tough stretch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't really look further than the one game ahead, but, and I saw St. Joe's coming because we were not practicing well. And then the VCU game, I felt like we gave it to them. I just felt like we made some mistakes that were uncharacteristic. And then you go and play St. Louis where you're playing for, a big game for a top seed, and, they were on their game. They had their A game and we had our D game. And then we go to GW, and GW's come off 2 losses, and they're returning champs, and they get Kara Washington back. So we're playing them at their best, and so to be the best, you got to beat the best at their best. And unfortunately, we didn't do that. I don't even think we played great in the first half, even when we were up 24-20. I just don't feel like we were playing great basketball. And then they decided to go inside. We struggled with that. We tried to go zone. The kids didn't remember that we said zones. Like it was a comedy of errors, and it's something that we have to correct and get better at.
So to look specifically into these games, we'll start with the game at St. Louis, that loss I mentioned before, 82-58. They had 4 players in double figures. Stepanovic had 22, France 16, and then Jackie Kempf and Vliet both had 15. How tough is it to game plan for 4 different scores who can really go off and to not be able to contain any of them?
Not easy. I mean, our game plan was basically to slow them down. And I think part of our problem right now is we're pushing with getting nothing in return. So I think we're going to have to look at our style a little bit and maybe, cut back on that because our turnovers are indicating that we're not making great decisions in transition. So, and that's also giving them extra possessions. So we have to look at that from a perspective of what's going to be the best interest of our team. In that game in particular, I thought we didn't do a very good job at all defending the post. I mean, I think Stepanovic and G just traded baskets, so it was like a wash. And then as far as the rest of them, I mean, Lauren Holden has been struggling from the field, and that obviously affects us. And Kate got back on track, but then struggled again against GW. So we really haven't had a complete team effort since Richmond. And so for us, to win games, we really can't afford people to take nights off.
Yeah, and you only shot 10% from 3 in that game. Obviously that's something that hurts a lot, 2 of 20 from 3. Is there something specific that's going on, and maybe the form or just not open shots? Is there something specific, or is it just one of those nights?
It's probably a combination of a few things. I mean, you got to, credit, St. Louis because I think they do a good job of kind of dictating what they want to give up. And we had open looks. We just didn't knock them down. I mean, it's just, but I just really felt like we now in the last couple of games, we've let our offense dictate our defense. So we're not making shots. We let up on the defensive end. That happened to start the second half in GW when, we gave up, we gave up a post play. We fouled at the very end. Then we come down and we turn it over, and then we go down and we give up a layup. And so we basically, when we don't get in a flow offensively, unfortunately, it affects us defensively, and it's got to be the complete opposite.
Yeah, you just kind of touched on it, too. It seems like in the games that you've lost this season, it's been in the second half that things have slipped away. Is that just a mentality thing, maybe not physically prepared? Is the stamina problem? Is there something specific you're looking at?
It's toughness. It's
Mhm.
mental toughness. As simple as that. It's mental toughness, and it's just being able to. I mean, if you look at certain teams, I mean, none of our players are in the conference in the top kids playing the most minutes. None of them. So there's no reason for that. I mean, because teams have players playing those top minutes and they're producing. So it's not the minutes; it's the mental toughness. I mean, we need to be able to get past the hurdles of when things don't go our way. But we also got to stop turning the ball over. I mean, you go back to that VCU game and we turned the ball over 2 straight times, and that results in a major run, and they score 8 points in the first 3 minutes. And same thing happened yesterday against GW. We turned the ball over at to start the half. And the first 5 minutes of the third quarter are the most critical times of a game, in my opinion.
And as usual, you stole one of my questions to move on to the GW game. I was going to talk about those turnovers, 19 in that game. It had looked like something you'd mostly figured out. It was really a problem early in the season was those turnovers. What caused them in this game? Was it a mental toughness thing like you touched on, or was it maybe a desperation kind of thing?
I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I think our point guards have to be much more poised. I mean, their kid was pushing us left, and instead of just setting them up left, come back right, we just get frazzled and we feel like we can't run the play to the left. You can. You can go to either side. And I just think, being frazzled, stepped in, and then all of a sudden their fans start screaming, little kids start screaming, so now we lose kind of our focus, because usually you can hear yourself think, and now you can't hear yourself think, so then you got to rely on instincts, and our instincts haven't been great. And then on top of that, GW was playing really good pressure basketball, and they were making us make difficult decisions, but we weren't taking what they gave us. We were forcing things. So it was kind of a comedy, and the comedy of errors, so to speak.
And 6 of those turnovers were from Jamaris Davis, who's been having an incredible season, and she actually had her 4th straight double-double in that game. Were those turnovers her trying to do too much, maybe feeling the pressure of being relied on?
I mean, I guess part of it, but, I mean, she's being doubled, and she's making bad passes. I mean, if you go back to GW center, she had 6 assists and 1 turnover. It's making good decisions when you're tired. I mean, did we rely on G? Hey, man, we relied on Sam a lot more than we relied on G last year. If we don't have Sam Clark, we have 5 wins last year. So, G, I think, sometimes thinks there's so much asked of her, but not even anywhere close to what was asked of Sam. Sam led us in every category, including assists. So, I mean, we can't have a poor pity party for each other of my God, I'm asked to do too much. Or, if you want to be a go-to player, if you want to be a top player in the conference, you got to respond to challenges. You can't back away from it or have excuses.
And you mentioned it a little earlier that you're maybe trying to mix the lineups up a little bit. In that game, only 17 minutes for Kate, and Danielle Padovano, whose minutes have gone up and down, she played 20. Is that something you're going to look to keep doing, to try to explore different lineups, mix and match, see what can happen?
Depends who plays well. You'll just, if you go in and you play well, you'll earn more minutes. And Kate had 0 rebounds in 17 minutes. Not acceptable. If you're not going to go out and do the little things well, you're not going to stay on the court. I'd rather go small than do that.
Yeah, speaking of going small, is Anna Kelly going to be one of those players that gets more minutes? It looks like she's picked up her game over the last few days.
Depends if she produces. She stepped up against St. Louis and then took a major step back against GW. Just poor decision making. Had no rebounds again in 21 minutes of basketball. So again, I mean, at least you pick up 1 or 2 defensive rebounds if you're doing your job. And we gave up 5 offensive rebounds in the first 5 minutes against them yesterday, and still we're in a position to have a lead in spite of ourselves. We got to get to the point where the reason we're not being successful is because the other team does something, not because we do it to ourselves. And that's the goal.
And it looks like also, in that same regard, that Hannah's been struggling as well. Again, she's had a couple of stretches this year, 4 of 15 from 3 over these last 4 games. Is that same thing? Is it just because you usually are good at getting her open looks? Is it just a mentality thing or something? Is it something you're trying to fix in her technique?
I mean, it's not necessarily in her technique of shooting. It's really getting her cleaner looks. She only had really 1 clean look against GW. That was at the end of the half, and she struggled with that. But that was the only look she got that was clean, to credit to GW. But part of that is because our offense was stagnant. We weren't running offense. We were letting GW dictate everything. And rather running our offense and being fluid and taking what the defense gave us, we decided to go one-on-one and tried to do everything individually. And that's not going to work. You got to rely on your teammates. You got to set good screens. You got to read screens. And you got to be, shot ready.
And to kind of maybe take a positive spin, also, is there anything positive you've been able to take out of this streak? Maybe is it a wake-up call almost?
Well, I mean, I told the kids in the locker room at the end of the game, I mean, this is a turning point game. This is where we decide to either put aside our selfishness of just, worrying about ourselves defensively, because what I'm seeing a lot defensively is, oh, I don't want to get in the lane and help because I don't want my kid to score, and that's completely opposite of who we are, and that's not, that's not how we're going to be successful. So for us right now, we got to get, basically get back to the basics, back to playing team defense, being as a unit, being upset if somebody scores against us as a team because we weren't we weren't there for each other, and that's not acceptable. If somebody's playing pressure defense and they get beat, that's going to happen. That's part of the game. Are we going to be there to help them, or are we going to worry about our player? And that's where we're struggling right now, and that's where we got to get better at.
Yeah, so to use that to transition into this game coming up this Saturday, St. Bonaventure at home at 2 o'clock, going to be the Alumni Day game. Is having the alumni there going to be something that you think maybe gives them a boost? Or is anyone going to come in and talk to the team maybe? Or
Well, I mean, it not necessarily. I mean, there'll be some alumni there, but I think like the point we made to kids today. I mean, they're the alumni. Whether you go back to the days of, some of the older alumni that had great success before we entered into the Atlantic 10, or you go back to the earlier, the most recent group that helped us win the championship. They worked hard for that pride of that Fordham uniform, and there's no excuse for us not leaving everything on the court. So, I've had different, obviously alums speak to the team. When Erin was here, she spoke to the team. When Abigail was here, when we were at George Mason, Mara spoke to the team. So you want different kids stepping up and making, giving them some of the reflections on what they learned and playing in Fordham basketball. But Fordham basketball is passion with purpose. It's playing hard and playing smart. And until we do both of those, we're going to continue to struggle. So hopefully we get back on track against St. Bonaventure.
And so looking specifically into that game, they've got two really good players in Mariah Ruff and Gabby Richmond, who's down low, the graduate 6'1" forward. Do you kind of have a game plan on how you're going to deal with those two?
I mean, we did a pretty good job on Mariah Ruff the last time we played him, and Gabby had a lot of success against us. And, Mariah's not going to go scoreless again. She's too good of a player to do that. We just have to limit her looks and limit her touches and really just, make them make difficult shots. Make them, make them step out of their comfort zone to make the shots. Make Gabby make hers, from a step out rather than in the post. So it's really making, from a defensive end, it's making them earn their points.
And then on the offensive side, is the focus going to be on ball movement? I know you mentioned that, and having watched a little bit of that George Washington game, that seemed to be what the issue was.
Absolutely. It's making sure that we reverse the ball 2 or 3 times, just to get the defense moving rather than getting stagnant and trying to go one-on-one. I mean, just having been a defensive coach all my life, the easiest teams to play are the teams that just go one-on-one. Just that's easy. There's not a whole lot of ball movement, and you just kind of sit in the lane and wait for them to take that shot. So for us, we need to make better decisions in half court. We'll run the ball and misses on as far as steals are concerned, but we're going to learn to, work the offense and make better decisions.
And so when you work on that in practice, is it a lot of just passing and going through plays again, or is there a specific drill that you guys run?
It's going through the offense and getting 3 reversals. Like you can't look to shoot until you get 3 reversals. It's learning to reverse the ball and move the ball, and if we can get our defense working, my goal is always to make the practices harder than the games, so the games seem easy. So if we are getting in the kids on the kids about denying and being aggressive defensively, that makes it harder to get an offense. So then when we go against somebody, it'll be a little easier to get an offense. So the goal is to make the defensive side of things really, really difficult in practice, so that the offensive side becomes a little bit easier.
Okay, and so to kind of wrap things up, one last question: 6 games left in the season, including this game on Saturday. What's kind of the rallying point that you guys are kind of trying to build around at this to try to get out of this low point with the last portion of the season left?
Seniors, seniors, this is your time. This is your time to step up. This is your team. You don't get this year back. You always Mike Tebow, who coaches the Washington Mystics, he met with the team, and he said, you have to ask yourself after every practice and every game, if this was the last time I ever play, would I be proud of myself? Would I be able to be happy with myself? And if you can't answer yes, then there's something wrong. And I know our kids can't answer yes. They've even admitted they can't answer yes. And my question is why? You should be able to leave everything out there. I should never have to coach your effort. I should never have to coach your attitude. And all the other things will help you, get through all those other things. So at this point, I think the most important thing for us is to leave everything out there that we're capable of doing. And at the end result, it is a game, but we need to take pride in what we're doing. Senior class, you need to step up. This is your time. There's no time for making any more excuses. This is your time to step up and take accountability.
All right, Coach, thank you very much. That'll do it for this week. You guys are back in action in the Rose Hill Gym against St. Bonaventure on Saturday at